You're listening to On Mission with Dr. Matt Davis, a podcast designed to explore the personal mission of everyday leaders. Hear from men and women who are making a difference in their corner of the world and discover what keeps them on mission. Welcome to On Mission. I am Matt Davis. Jonathan Sheely is not here today, still on paternity leave, and it's been a whole day since his baby was born. I don't know why he's not back in the office yet, but I am flying solo today with my guest and someone that I have been just dying to talk to, and that is my good friend Beckie Manley, who is the Chief Executive at Fierce Strategy and Creative. She is from St. Simon's Island in Georgia, where she and her husband Tim live. They have a 25-year-old son, Jack, who is making an awesome start in life. I have been following his progress closely, and her first job was working as a camp counselor. All right, so I want to know about that for sure. Her favorite meal is chicken piccata from a very specific restaurant. Where is this restaurant that you love?
It's called Tramici, and it is one of the best little Italian restaurants on St. Simon's. I'm a big fan.
Well, you'll have to take me there at some point. She enjoys cooking, bike riding, shopping, and watching inspiring documentaries. I guess we probably twisted your arm to get you to tell us a favorite sports team is the Boston Red Sox. And Beckie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I am so glad you agreed to be here. The Leader to Leader Conference is underway, and that has been a tremendous event here on campus and brought just some incredible professionals here, people who approach life differently from a kingdom perspective, and that's what Maranatha is all about. So I hear, and you got a really big coffee here today, and I'm glad you were able to tank up, but I hear you have a specific coffee that's even named after you on the island. Is that true?
I do. It's the benefit of living on a small island, Matt. We have one Starbucks, and I order the same thing every day. This is one of my few habits that I have.
Okay.
And after I ordered it every day for many years, the barista was like, you know what? It would be so much easier if we just gave this a name. And so they call it the Rebecca.
The Rebecca.
Yeah,
nice.
So if you go to St. Simon's Island and order the Rebecca, you will get 4 shots of decaf over ice, 1 pump of mocha, and light half and half.
Light half and half. Okay,
Yep.
But here they didn't probably transfer the name up to ours, so you had to give them all the ingredients.
Karen was so kind to order this for me this morning, and she had to tell them what it was. But on St. Simon's Island, it is officially the Rebecca.
No instructions needed. You get the Rebecca. Well, that's a pretty great achievement in life. I don't know if there's anywhere to go in life from here.
I just want it to become official, Matt. I want it to come at every Starbucks. That's my goal.
Well, it's the most normally named thing at Starbucks. Everything else is some weird Italian or something or other going on. I'm not personally a Starbucks person. I don't even understand it, to be honest. And I used to Dr. Gibbs would send me to Starbucks to get his orders, and he would just have to write it down on a card, and I would just get up there and say, I'm going to say these words. I hope they mean something to you. They mean nothing to me.
It is their own little language.
He could have pranked me pretty hard if he just started writing things. So I never really got with that program. Although last week I was in India, and their coffee is really good. It's actually more like tea, and it's really loaded up with a lot of sugary stuff. You don't want to ask how many calories.
Yeah, no.
But it's actually pretty good. So in the absence of any Coke Zero, I converted to coffee. So that worked out okay. So you were a camp counselor. How did that go?
Oh my goodness, I absolutely loved it. I taught art classes.
Oh, cool.
And then I had all of these little campers that would come in from the city, like New York City, and a lot of them had never been to a place like this camp, which was on the side of the mountain. And so one of my favorite things to do with them was to take them all outside, and I would line them up on the ground outside the cabin, and I would make them lay down on the ground, and they'd just be complaining and, squirming. And then I'd say, okay, now look up.
Yeah.
And the sky was just like black velvet with a million stars, and they just got quiet. And it was the first time they'd ever seen the sky like that, because you don't see that in the city, and they hadn't ever gotten out of the city. And it was just special moments like that where, you just hope that you can touch their lives and change their lives. And I hope they remember that. I hope they
How
remember
could you
laying
forget it?
outside that crazy girl's cabin
Of course.
and looking up at the sky because it was just absolutely magical. So
I was on the plane, and a guy was there, an Indian fellow who came to the States to study. He'd lived in big city of Mumbai his entire life, came over to the States, and was studying in New York City. He asked me when we found out I grew up in the Midwest, he said, "Can you see the stars there?"
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
Oh.
"What?" It was a strange question to me because,
Yeah.
of course, but he said he had tried hard to kind of travel outside of New York City, and every night, as he had a very limited trip, it was
Yeah.
overcast.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of bemoaning the fact that he never got a chance to see
Yeah.
the stars. I thought, man, that's really sad, but that's a lot of people's experience. And
I know.
maybe there's a
Yeah.
metaphor in there
Yeah.
for sort of taking a moment to appreciate the vastness of the universe and really the beauty
Yeah.
that's all around us.
Yeah. It was an amazing place. It was just a little camp, but it was an amazing place. And I just remember seeing that dark sky with the stars and so many shooting stars.
Yeah.
And it was just fun to expose these children to, they had horses and lake and water skiing and all that. So it's just fun. It was a great experience.
Back in the day, they used to have guns at camp,
Yeah.
and I remember as a teenager going to the shooting range. That was one of the little activities. That was a big highlight. I look back on that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we were arming
I
the
hope they had a good
teenagers,
insurance policy.
That might get you put on a list, these days. You're doing what now? They'd call you a Christian nationalist for sure. So we have the podcast devoted to these kinds of conversations with people who are about something bigger than themselves, something that matters. And I think that's really what all of us want. We want to believe that our life means something and that it's about more than just the daily grind. And you're living that way. And I love your enthusiasm. You always encourage me. We have a long-standing relationship between the university and your professional team, and we have benefited from that so much. I have learned so much personally from our interactions, and more than anything, I appreciate your approach to life, to your work, and it has never seemed to me that you approach your job as work in the employment sense of things, and you have a passion for that and a joy, and I just can't wait to kind of explore that a little bit and give people a glimpse into how you approach that, because that joy doesn't mean that everything's rosy every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've had some ups and downs too along the way, so can't wait to kind of talk through how God's led you on that path and what that's like. So we always start out the podcast, the On Mission podcast, with a deep question, and we're recording this earlier in the morning than we have ever started any podcast. All right, so that's a potential disaster, but we'll see. I think it's pretty safe. But tell me, how do you frame it? What is your mission in life?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And, our mission at Fierce is really my personal mission.
Mm-hmm.
I think as an entrepreneur, yourself and your values and what you believe are really incorporated in your business, oftentimes. And our mission is to do mighty things with excellence that affects change in our world. And I think this is part of what drives us every day at Fierce. We work with a lot of big companies. We work with multi-million and billion-dollar brands. And every time we have the privilege to work with a company like that, we really seek out either a nonprofit or a pro bono account that we can really serve and give back to. It's really important to me that my team understand that, yes, they're building brands, they're helping sell services and products and helping with enrollment at universities and bringing students into life-changing experiences. But one of the other things that we do to sort of enact this mission is we give back. And at the end of the year, it gives me so much joy to send a list and say, do you realize that, in working hard this year for Fierce, not only did you move the brands forward that trust us every day to help them grow and thrive, but we were able to give to this country and this country and this mission and this nonprofit, and just a long list of people that we have been enabled to help and support. And I think that's, that's a big part of who we are. I want our people to feel like every day, yes, they're doing a job, they're working, but they're also contributing nationally and globally to things that matter. And that's always been a real part of our heart as a company.
The field of marketing is such a broad term, and you, at the base level, run a marketing agency, but it seems to me that you're trying to accomplish a whole lot more than just meeting a customer's needs, or making some more money by getting more clients and growing the business. Where does that come from? Where does that drive for you? What motivates you the most? Obviously, we all are happy when we make a big sale or we land a big client, but it doesn't seem to me that that's where you derive the most satisfaction.
Yeah, it's certainly a part of the process, but we're really about the bigger picture. I don't ever want to just be that vendor agency. I always want to be a strategic partner, and I think that's where our satisfaction comes, is when we can come alongside a corporate team and say, okay, where have you been? Where are you today? Where do you want to go? And then let's help you get there. When we were talking yesterday in our session, it was, we're the agency that wants to make our clients think bigger and get them excited about their brands. And that's where we really find a lot of satisfaction in what we do. And we found that if we start with the strategy first, and we really do our homework and we do our discovery time with the client, then it leads us to the right answers. And that's really what we want for our clients. We're never going to be an agency that throws 10 logos on the wall and says, hey, pick one, we're so clever, they're all so beautiful. We really want to lead them to the right answer for their company, so that we give them something that's going to have lasting value.
Right.
And I think that's really important.
So in 2014, Maranatha went through that process, and we had, from the founding, been Maranatha Baptist Bible College, and there's certainly great meaning to that name and to the legacy, the heritage that was created. I graduated from Maranatha Baptist Bible College and was proud to do that, and I'm proud for that. And boy, as Christians, we use the word pride, and that becomes a red flag, but I think you know what I mean. And yet, we also understood that it seemed that what God was doing and growing here was sort of becoming an uncomfortable fit with a label that didn't seem to exactly encapsulate all that we were offering and the value for our students. And so we scratched our heads for a long time. And in fact, prior administrations had actually attempted to sort of break out of that shell, and there was a lot of resistance to that, and there was obviously a change process that had to take place behind the scenes administratively as well. But when it came time to make a change, we realized this isn't just changing our name. Like, I could file a corporate document, a one-pager, and say, okay, our name is now Maranatha Baptist University, but we wanted to take that opportunity and really articulate what Maranatha was about today and what all of the scope of that would look like. But honestly, we had no idea how to actually accomplish that. And I was the executive VP at that time. Dr. Mariana is the president. Had great support from the board, and we had a really, a lot of unity around that internally and with our board, our governing board, which we had to really respect. And I think that's a very important part of it. But Karen, your sister Karen Hansel, was working for Maranatha at that time, and she said, my sister is a part of an agency, and she is an executive there, and I think we ought to talk to her. And that's really when we met, was at that time. And the process that you helped to lead us through really helped shape my understanding of how important brands are to the identity of an organization. And it's almost a two-directional thing. It's not just, here's what you are and let's make a brand that reflects it. But in a way, the brand helped to shape who we are and certainly how we articulate that publicly and even internally. But can you kind of describe, maybe from your recollections of some of that too, the process that you help take an organization or a client through in trying to articulate their brand as a connection to the strategy, the overall mission of the organization? Because that was a pretty eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love that discovery time with clients. That's my favorite part of the process. You know, we always say a logo is a mark and a brand is a promise. And what we strive to build for you was that brand experience, so that students would understand, this is the place for me and this is why. And so I remember coming on campus for the first time and meeting your team and sitting down and talking to you and Dr. Marriott and different ones, some of the students, interacting and just really having our team get a sense of what your culture was and what you believed in and the things that were going to need to be important that we communicated together. And then we kind of go back as a team and we take everything that we heard and saw and learned, and we begin to apply our expertise and our experience to that to form positioning for the brands, to create logos. I remember that process of creating that logo and seeing it on one of my designers' monitors and being like, oh, that's so beautiful. That's so, elevated who you were currently and prepared you to step into the future just really boldly. We feel very strongly, especially with faith-based brands, that they deserve the same excellence that our, big corporate companies do, because a lot of what you're doing is generating eternal ROI. Yeah. And I think that's important. And as a secular agency, we have a unique understanding of your customer. And then, once you sort of form those foundational elements, which everybody was in agreement on, then you begin to build a brand strategy. So how are we going to tell this story and who are we going to tell it to? Doing our research and figuring out who your student is and what social platforms they're on, so we're talking to them in the right place. And what is important to them, what are their goals, what's their mission, and really beginning to build those strategies that have helped us continue to grow enrollment and just really advertise the school to the right people. And it's just been an amazing process to see. And I think you are unique in understanding the value of a brand. We talked about you yesterday.
Me?
Yes, we did. We talked about you in our class because the reason we work with Maranatha is obviously we believe in what you're doing, but you also understand this industry uniquely. And so I feel like that gives your team a lot of confidence in us. And I think that's really important, because then they'll really look to the strategy, follow the strategy, because if everybody's not using the same playbook, it can be really chaotic.
Well, the creative type is a bit of a unique individual. Everyone wants to contribute and feel that they have input, but yet at the same time we have this sort of style guide and we have a brand identity that's important to stay within. And one of the things that impressed me so much even through that process is how much precise detail goes into every element of not just the logo design, but the entire brand package. And that level of precision, down to the millimeter of the placement of the line under the M and how it all lines up. We had basically an architectural drawing of the entire brand, and I'm going, this speaks to me. As an attorney, I'm not exactly the creative type, to sit there and just visualize it. But when you see it and how it all integrates and fits together, it's like, this is visually representing who we are. And we need to really be careful about that. And within the organization, the brand has to also be useful and understood, that we don't take the shield and just smash it out of proportion and slap it on a sign on a door.
Yep.
You know, and there's always a lot of that temptation. So
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times internally, I'm more like the sheriff, you know,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
going around
yeah.
going, hey, whoa, 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 what is this?
Yeah.
We don't do it in green, you know?
Yep.
So I've had to go around here and say, what's with all the green? No green, you know?
Yeah.
And people would tease me. They even got me a green cup. And I said, thanks. You know, what is this for? I meant to hide this. I was thinking about spray painting it. But
You better not let me see that green cup.
and maybe some people would look at that and say that's tedious, you know, just this precision, this detail, and I just want to be expressive and, you know, express myself. So talk to somebody who's thinking about a marketing career or something like that about how they can sort of rein that in and that balance between creative expression and staying within sort of the guidelines of a brand and its identity.
Sure. I love what you're saying. We always say at Fierce that greatness is in the details.
Mm-hmm.
And it is those details, that preciseness, that takes something from good to great.
Yeah.
And that's really our job. I just really feel that our job at Fierce is to elevate the brands that we touch with every interaction. And that preciseness and those details, they really matter. As far as somebody who's going into the field of design, you really have to understand the rules before you can break them.
Right.
And I find this to be so true with our designers. You know, they have the freedom to do whatever they want to do. I really trust my design team. I trust my designers and their experience, and I never try to stifle what it is that they're creating. And I think I have the freedom to do that as the leader of the shop because they understand intimately that there are grids, Swiss grids and guidelines and these architectural drawings, like you said, that are behind the scenes of every logo that we create. And so I can trust that logo when I present it to a client, and we can back up and kind of show you the behind the scenes look of that logo. Yeah. So even though there's a lot of creative expression there and they've had the ability to go and play, that's what I want them to do. I always say, go play, go play, go do this. But there's a science to it. And I love that our designers understand that and can bring that creative expression that works within guidelines so that you can have that brand consistency. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have it, you don't have anything.
Well, as an example of maybe some brands that sort of failed in that respect to honor, because you can't just restart your branding all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we did a reset in 2014. I'm surprised that now 10 years, it's been 10 years. Can you believe
It's
this?
Crazy.
I have a hard time with that. I'm surprised that 10 years later, the brand holds up. I mean, I thought we'd probably get 10 years out of it and then be like, okay, let's do another set. But this is a really timeless thing for us. And yeah, you can play with it a little bit and you can bring it into new life and iterations in the way it's presented. But you've got to establish it first. And I remember talking to our campus shop spirit wear team and saying, you know, they wanted to immediately start playing with it in 2014. Yeah. And I said, we have to establish it first, right. Like a couple of years maybe, where we're just like where the Shield M, you know, I don't know, Danielle, if you could change the background screen to there's a slide there in the PowerPoint that's got our, no, go back to the Maranatha logo. I want to show that. Should be one of the slides there you can choose. But the Shield M is now associated with Maranatha. Yeah. But in 2014, people would have been like, what's that? Right. You know, we haven't ever seen that before. And so as we were able to establish that, then you can kind of break the rules. Then you can kind of look at, there it is. Okay, thank you. Yep. So this was originally the 2014 that we came up with. And, you know, according to the style guide, there's all kinds of permutations of it on white, on yellow, on colored, on photos. Here's how you do it here. You never do it two color in this format. You don't smash it out of proportion. If your page is this big, it never gets bigger than this. You know, just all those different rules that come along. And even the placement of the line under the M and how, you know, you don't put anything else in the M unless we do it, and then you can because we know how to break the rules. And so I just love all of that. Like, to me, that's the fun part of playing with, you know, that entire brand. But at the beginning, you have to kind of work very hard to establish that, okay, this is now where we're at, whether it's the fonts that you're using and getting those into everybody's computers and getting the logos, and then going around and finding. We used to find, we call it the Trumpets M, our old logo.
Yeah.
Some people said the golf tees. I like that too, but we would go around campus and go, uh-oh, more golf tees or more trumpets. We got to find those. And there are still some remnants, but now it's only a couple, and they're like classic.
It's kind of nostalgic. Yeah.
So we have like a stained glass window. I'm not getting rid of the stained glass window. We have it engraved on some benches, around here. So I actually like that part now. But we did not only this, but we did the entire seal.
Yep.
That was complicated.
Yeah.
And every one of the elements that's in there, and some new ones like lions. I mean, we never had lions. That's not our logo. That's not our mascot. What is the connection? But we had a story behind that entire thing, and all of it goes back to something you alluded to in the process. You came on site. You met with all the stakeholders, for a pretty good chunk of time, and you guys took home massive amounts of notes, and all of the research was there, and then you came back with, okay, here's some options. Yeah. And there were some off the wall options too that we said, woo, I like that, but probably not. Like, I won't get into some of the the mascot suggestions people made and crazy things along the way, but because we did the mascot change at the same time, so we had saber cats going on with it. That was probably the most fun.
That was
just
very
hiding
fun.
That from everyone too.
Yep.
And we pulled off that surprise.
Yeah, you
like
did. Yeah,
I had to do a lot of rope-a-dope. There was a whole faction of people that wanted to be the sabers, and that kind of developed. I sort of got that going behind the scenes through one of our faculty members, and then I had to disavow it but I was trying to test the waters to see if people would respond to it, and then we had to back off. And I actually started the counter push for the Yeti. And I never had any intention of it, but I was just kind of behind the scenes trying to get people to go for that, because I think that's a pretty fun counter mascot. And every once in a while, a Yeti will show up in the crowd, But I love that connection too. But we just had so much fun with the reveal and, pulling all of that off. And who would have thought that marketing could be fun?
Oh, I hear this so much, Matt. Like, I hear so many people, our clients, will say that very same thing. Beckie, you just make this process so much fun. Yes. We did not have any idea. I have clients who want to come over and work for us, and vendors who want to come work for Fierce, because like, you guys just have so much fun. But you can have fun with this process when you're really disciplined about it. It's the same thing about design, having rules, but being able to play. It's like, when we're disciplined about the process and we show up on your campus and we do our homework and we ask the questions and we meet with the stakeholders, then we go back and I say we go into our creative cave, right? Yep. And we think about it and we process it, and then we build a strategy together. Mm-hmm. And then you come back and we have this reveal. Then it's your logo. It's not our logo. I mean, you spoke into it. You directed it. You inspired it. And we just bring it back to you and give this to you as a gift and say, okay, here's what we think we heard you say. Did we get this right? And then did we apply that direction correctly to this logo? You may have a few tweaks here or there. But then it's like, there is an incredible sense of pride in it because you were a part of that process. Yeah. You spoke into it. We are proud of the brands that we create, but the thing that makes me the happiest is when the client takes that brand and is just so excited about it, and they want to introduce it to everybody and have these big reveals, and everybody gets so excited about it. Then we can walk away from that project and say, okay, this was a success because they feel that ownership. It's not Fierce's logo, it's your logo, and I think that's really important to our team. And that's why 100% of the time, every client that we take on, we stop and we listen first, and then we go and do our thing. Yeah. And it always leads to a great experience. That is a lot of fun.
All right. So I think a brand example that probably didn't quite do their homework before they made the change. And Danielle, you can flip it over to that Gap example. So this was the classic Gap. I mean, instantly internationally recognizable as the blue box with the kind of serifed, thin, condensed font with the Gap. I mean, you would see that anywhere in the world and know exactly what that brand was all about. And then a few years ago, they decided to mess around with their logo.
I think I had blocked this out because I don't even remember. It's so bad.
They went to I don't know what font that is. It's some
Yeah.
kind of Arial black or something really generic. And Gap, bold. The blue box is just floating there somehow behind the P. And I mean, that is an epic brand fail, right? Now, to their credit, 6 days
Yeah.
after introducing the failed logo, they go back, pretty much back to the classic logo. And, I don't know, as you look at something like that, does that just make your skin crawl, or do you go, I don't know, I could see that might work, or what did they do wrong,
Yeah.
How do you diagnose that?
It's a really good question because we're faced with this quandary too. We're a branding agency, so we love nothing more than creating brands, right?
Sure.
That is just the best process in the world. But sometimes the best thing we can do for a client is say, you know what? You don't need a new logo. You have so much brand equity in this logo, just like Gap did, right? It is universally known. You have so much brand equity in this logo. The best thing for you to do is to not change it. And I think that takes a lot of discipline for an agency, because the temptation is, of course, oh, let's go. Let's do this. This is such a fun process. We want to be a part of it. Sometimes a brand just needs to be refreshed, or sometimes a brand just needs a new campaign where you keep the element the same, but you introduce a completely new campaign around that foundational element that brings new life to the brand. And so, who knows what their data told them and, what their teams were asking for. And you just can't know, because every brand is so unique.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we've had to say, actually, no, you don't need that. And how about we go this direction? Because you're right, just like you were saying about the MBU brand, you've got 10 years under your belt. I think you'll get another 10, maybe another 15 easily, because part of our job as an agency is to give you a timeless brand, not to create something that's of the moment, using fonts that are popular that day or that year's Pantone color. It's really designing something that gives you that longevity, because the longer you have that mark, the more value it has to you and the stronger it gets. And you do have to be the sheriff. I think you might need a little sheriff badge, but we always say, even with Fierce, we're the brand police sometimes, because we have to kind of protect it and steward it and be advocates for it, and to say, oh, no, wait, I saw this over here. What is this? Let's fix this. This isn't right. And this is why
We've
matters.
had those phone calls.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, what is this? And I go, I don't know. I'll get on it. I'll find it.
Yeah, but I love that you do that. And I love it when our CEOs, I can send them something that I find that might be green or might be orange or might be this. And they say, oh, you're right, Becky. I'm going to go track that down, and we're going to fix that, because we also want to build an understanding of why you're investing in a brand and what it takes to make that investment pay off for your company, your university, your school, whatever it is. It is definitely something you have to be very intentional with.
All right, I've seen it long enough. Let's go back to oh, that's much better. Wow, where do we get that cool logo?
I wonder who did that lovely logo.
And there are so many. Like, when I'm looking at our portfolio right now, it's so many excellent brand images, but it's so much more than that. I mean, every one of these came with like 30 different permutations and arrangements that we get to use, and it's like, there's some rules on how you use it, but there's so much flexibility and so many opportunities that you just never run out of, ways to use it. So I always have appreciated that about our relationship, our partnership in that. But let me kind of ask about a little bit in terms of your personal journey, because you had to make some tough decisions along the way, and you left the agency that really kind of, at that point, you were working with in 2014, and decided to go out on your own. And that had to be one of the scariest moments of your life. We were happy to say, well, wherever you're going, we're going. And we were, just, I hope, the first ones to jump on that bandwagon. But where does Fierce come into play, and how did God lead you to just say, now's the time?
Yeah, it was an interesting journey. The first few years after I graduated from college, I put myself under really, really smart people to learn from. I knew that I had a lot to learn. I was in my early 20s, and I knew I always wanted to have my own agency, but I knew that I I had to learn some things first. And so I started my first agency when I turned 30. Sold that agency, and about 3 years later to my business partner, and came down to St. Simon's Island to work with JDA. And I was there for about 9 years. And then there was just a lot of disruption that happened sort of at the end of that relationship, things that just surprised me that I didn't want to be a part of. And so I decided to leave my business partners and start off on my own. Wow. And it was just a wonderful experience. It was hard. It was scary. It was unexpected. It wasn't something that I had planned to do. Along the years, somebody had found the quote from William Shakespeare's Midsummer Night Dream, "Though she be but little, she is fierce," and had sort of associated that with me. And so fierce kind of became a word that became a part of our brand language, mine in particular, just building brands that were fiercely loyal and fiercely curious and all of these things. It just kind of became a language. And so when the time came for me to start my own agency, I remember I was in the car with my son, Jack, and I was like, Jack, what am I going to name? This is like my opportunity to name myself, because we name brands, every day, but it's a lot harder when you're naming yourself. And he goes, Mom, fierce. He's like, of course. He's like, that's what you have to be. He said,
because he's like a teenager at that point, watching his mom go through this like really difficult process.
Yeah. And I was like, Jack, that's so right. And so Fierce was born, and we purposely chose Fierce Strategy and Creative as our name, with strategy leading the process, because that was really who we were. Yeah. That was what we were all about. And the bear was interesting. If you've seen our logo, you know that our logo is a bear. And I remember I was talking to my designer who did the logo, Jack Burgess, and he was in California. We were on a Zoom call, and I was wearing a bear claw necklace that I have.
Of course.
And he's like, Becky, what are you wearing? And I told him the story. I had been in a very bad accident. I had asked my father-in-law for this. It's like a, 4-inch bear claw, because it was the fiercest thing I could, I knew, and I engraved the word fierce on the back so that I was reminded to be fierce going through the accident and just a year's worth of that, trauma. And he's like, there's going to be a bear in your logo, because it was part of my story. And I was like, a bear? And he drew a bear on a piece of paper and he held it up. I wish I had that bear. And I was like, okay. He's like, I want you to go explore them, because bears are curious and bears are fierce and bears are all of these things. And so we created this magical bear. Andy Heckathorn did this lovely, lovely bear.
It really is cool.
Oh, it's
because honestly, your bear, and I don't know if you have a name for him. Does he have a name?
His name is Bolt.
Bolt?
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
All right, so Bolt is big and, could easily end you pretty quick, but yet he doesn't come across as, like, mean or anything. No. You want to give him a hug.
Yeah. So many people have said, Becky, your bear, he doesn't want to, like, eat me. I just kind of want to have a conversation with him and give him a bear hug. And I was like, that's exactly what we wanted him to be. And it's so interesting, because we put that bear out there into the world. I wasn't sure how people would respond to it. And now I literally, for the last 10 years, have gotten hundreds, thousands of pictures of bears from people all over the world. Because now when they see a bear, whether it's an artistic bear or a real bear, a scary bear, a sweet bear, they think of us. And I just love that. We actually have an Instagram account called Fierce Bear Sightings, because I have received so many of them with these wonderful stories.
Well, I got one to send you then.
Yeah, okay. You got to send me a bear. And I just love that the bear has become something that is endearing to our brand, and that people understand and make these connections about curiosity and about kindness. We even do bear hugs. Yesterday when I was giving our speech, we have a little bear hug card, because our key core value is kindness. And so the bear hug is our bear on one side, and on the other side it says, we give you this bear hug because we think you're awesome. And it's a simple way for us to encourage people. And it's so great, because we give it to waitresses and different people who wait on our teams.
People are so beat down right now.
I know.
And the economy or politics, or just the way people are at each other all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need a little kindness, even if it's from a stranger.
You
Huh?
just need a bear hug in your pocket. And there was a woman that waits on us at one of the restaurants, and she, about a year after I'd given her one, she opens her little book, and this bear hug is tattered and paper clipped and everything right there in her book that she uses every day. And she said, Becky, I don't know if you remember giving me this. She said, but I look at this every day,
Wow.
and it makes me smile, and it makes me feel appreciated. And, you know, corporations can do that.
Yeah.
They can have little things about their brands and brand story that encourage others. So,
Well, you took some pretty rough circumstances, both from the workplace scenario and from that accident, and turned it into a business that is so much more than a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more than your workplace. It's just kind of almost an expression of who you are. You've built yourself into it, and that seems to me to be one of the joys of going out on your own. But it's not easy.
mm-hmm.
Now, you took a unique approach with your agency, and you sort of call it the collective.
Mm-hmm.
Can you want to talk about like how you're able to keep up with so many awesome professionals in a field that has a lot of turnover by kind of giving them the opportunity to sort of be their own boss at the same time? Because you have a lot of people who are their own sort of own their own agencies as well, but that work with you. And I don't know how that seems like a fun approach to it.
Yeah, you know, when I left JDA, we had a very heavy real estate model, partner model, a lot of full-time people. It was very different. It was sort of the Mad Men era.
Yeah.
My business partners were a lot older than me, and that was sort of how they wanted to run an agency.
Okay.
When I left, I just really wanted to turn that model on its head. I really wanted our agency to be nimble and to be able to work with both the billion-dollar brands, but also the startups, because the startups get me really excited.
Mm-hmm.
And to be at that table and to be at the larger, you know, brand table, you really have to think differently about your model. And so we decided to do the Fierce Collective, and the way it works is we have a core group of full-time staff, then we have a core group of retained staff, then we have another layer of freelancers when we need them. And then we have great partners, because I don't pretend to know everything about marketing or websites or SEO. My core specialty is branding and brand messaging, the heart of everything, the whole process. But we have wonderful teams that we've invested in building relationships with for 5, 10, 15 years who intimately understand our expectations for our clients, and they live in the world of paid digital 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, so they know that, and
Good
they can,
for them.
yeah, they can bring that expertise to the table, and they work in the web environment, or, you know, dealing with SEO every day and keeping up with all of the changes in these spaces. And so together, we can be as big or as small as our clients need us to be. And it's been a wonderful thing. And there's so many incredible tools. Like when we first started Fierce, Zoom had just started. We were probably one of the early adapters. Slack has been an incredible tool. So yeah, right now we're 100% virtual. We have people working all over the country. We have people working in overseas.
Yeah.
I love those designers, because we come to work and everything's already done for the
Isn't
day.
that cool?
It's like
Yeah.
Christmas. Yes, it's magic. But these tools and just our insight into building the company the way we did 10 years ago has allowed us to run the agency the way that we do. And the reason that we can is the people that we hire do have this sense of personal responsibility about what they're doing. I don't need to babysit them. We have an incredible team. They've been my team since the beginning. We haven't lost anybody. One person left because she had a baby.
Wow.
But other than that, everybody has stayed on board and is committed and feels a part of this journey and the story of Fierce. And so I have so much confidence in them. And these really, the technology and just the approach that we took early on has allowed us to be what we are today.
Well, your passion for it is obvious. It's very clear that you're accomplishing so much more than just helping brands and logos look nice and sell products. And I appreciate your intentional approach to it, your loyalty to Maranatha, and to helping us to really maximize the potential that we have and to stay on track. We went through a strategic planning process over the last couple of years, and that's when I was sitting in my office thinking, I need more perspective on this. And so we had reached out to all of our different stakeholders and alumni and pastors and so many that speak into it. And I said, we have so much data. I need help making sense of this. Yes. And it struck me, fierce strategy and creative. And I said, I'm calling Beckie. Yeah. I said, hey, how can we like add this to our relationship? You know, can you help me with this? And you're like, absolutely. Yeah. And so what we came up with when I presented that to the board, it was like almost, I hate to use the word anticlimactic, but it was almost like, yeah, that's what we were saying, you know? And that's, I think, when you know you've hit it, is when it just, you look at it and you instantly recognize yourself, like looking in a mirror, and yet that didn't exist, you know, without your help in helping us to present that and put that together. And now that's not just something that we're using externally, it's something that internally is guiding our efforts to help us to become better as a ministry, as an organization, and that's a whole lot more than just logo design.
Yeah, I really feel like that's our point of difference as we look at other agencies and as clients consider other agencies. That strategic piece is so important, and it's just something we love. You know, we love that. We love the research, and I can't tell you, Matt, how many times CEOs will call me in a week with all the different types of companies that we work with. You know, you can't always go to your staff or to employees with particular questions just because of the status of who you are. Yeah. But you can call me and say, Beckie, I do not know what to do here. I've had clients call me and say, we have a situation with employees. Could you help us with this? Because I don't know what to do. And, you know, I've seen a lot in 25 years. I may not always have the answer, but I can sit with them and say, okay, first of all, this is what you need to do. Call your lawyer first. Don't communicate this. You know, make sure you do this right. And we've been able to help so many different things. Just the other day, a client called and said, I'm going to be interviewed, and I wasn't expecting this. And usually the CEO does this, but it's fallen on me. It's the CFO. And I said, that's okay. Send me your questions. You know, send me the answers you want to say. Let me help you strategically work in the brand story correctly into your interview. And he was like, wow, he said, thank you. And then he called me back after the interview and he said, it went great. He's like, I felt so good about it. Thank you so much. And so there's so much that we do in addition to just the branding, the marketing, the website design, the television, the video. We just are there for our clients in these moments when they're not quite sure what to do, even if it's not specifically related to the projects that we're working on. And we just have so much experience from working with so many brands that oftentimes I can say, yeah, Matt, let me look at that with you. I love where you've gotten this to this point. Have you thought about this? What if we did this? Or what if we said it this way? And I think that just gives us another layer of value to our clients.
That's ministry. And you have that open door of ministry because of your professionalism, your expertise, your established reputation, and the service that you've provided consistently over all those years. And then that's what brings you to mind when someone does have another question or does have an opportunity to say, what's different about you anyway? And that's what I love about your approach to life. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today and for being here for our Leader to Leader conference and just for all you do personally and your team to help Maranatha really achieve the best version of who we are that we can be. Really, and for us, it's to God's glory.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a privilege.
Thank you for joining us today. On Mission is a production of Maranatha Baptist University. Subscribe to On Mission on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to leave a review, as this will help other growing leaders find these conversations. For information about our guests, previous episodes, and general information about On Mission or MBU, go to mbu.edu/podcast. Join us again next week as we examine what keeps leaders on mission.